Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know, like a motherfucking smack addict. Bye up, bye up. In a menudo style of direct fashion today, man, we're going to explore the life of Chucky from Confinement Tortilla Flats. You know, I did a video about him the other day, man, and a lot of people were concerned and asking questions about how Chucky's, midgets, and of course, his brother Woody's life ultimately ended up. So we're going to get to Chucky's profile here, man, and I'm gonna let you guys know exactly how his life ended up. It was a tragedy, but it's a story that happens. Chucky burst on the scene in 1993, and everybody seen the documentary on the Fox News Undercover, and it just blew up. It became a phenomenon. A lot of people were interested because a lot of people from California actually lived that life. People from all over the world lived that life. So let's get to Chucky, man. The story of Chucky from Compton Barrio Tortilla Flats. But before we do, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed to the dope content that I'm constantly bringing, man. And I appreciate all the support. So Chucky was about 9 when he ran away from his home in Southgate to hang out with the Compton Barrio Tortilla Flats gang. He had been molested by a neighbor after his father abandoned his mother. And that's the tragedy of things, man. It happens like that, the mother's not, paying attention to her kid, and she's not able to be in two places at one time. And, he looks towards a father figure because his father ran out, and, he got invested in a neighbor who took advantage of that, man, a young kid, and was a monster and basically took advantage of him. So, Chucky decided, he couldn't deal with that. So he fled, man. He ran away and hit those railroad tracks, and down the street, he found the Tortilla Flats that showed him love and embraced him. And, they became his new family. And for brothers, he chose Midget and Woody, two veteran members only a few years older than Chucky. Both of them had been shot and seriously wounded by rival gangs before Chucky got there in 1993. For a mentor and a father figure, he chose Rafael Crook Gamboa. He figured that was a big homie that had the right intentions and someone he could look to. It seemed like Chucky was always in search of a father figure and a family, someone where he can get love. And that's the story of a lot of us that got involved in gangs. We turn towards the streets to get that love and feel that family aspect of things, especially for those that didn't have that feeling at home. Over the years, Chucky became proficient in fighting, burglary, firearms, and Grand Theft Auto. First his homeboy and adopted brother Woody, and then later Midget spent time in the California Youth Authority. This is the gang's higher education system, and the T-Flats members were schooled and became loyal sureños. Chucky too spent years in juvenile camps and CYA facilities, hardening his sureño heart. After being sentenced to life in prison and being told by the sentencing judge that he should never be allowed to be set foot in free society again, Midget became a super hard sureño, someone who basically was loyal and dedicated. For those of you that asked about Midget, Midget was hit, man. It's mysterious circumstances why he was hit and placed. He ultimately ended up in a wheelchair. I know a lot of people get him and his brothers confused. He had two brothers, one Lalo and another brother named Woody. Woody's still trying to fight to get out, out of under his case. He's still got appeals going on. And I don't speak on his brother Lalo and his situation. As far as Midget did get hit. Some people are saying it was a bad call or whatever the case may be, but he did get put in a wheelchair. He's currently in a wheelchair. In September of 2003, Chucky, Midget, and Crook, were interviewed by a guy, man, and they got told a story about exactly what happened with little Chucky. So this is how it goes, man. In 2002, a guy named Dennis Little Boxer Gonzalez, who was on the run for an attempted murder in Alhambra, took over Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Basically, he went out there on the run, man, and he started fucking getting involved in the drug business out there. Basically went up there and set up shop, established his hood. And, you see that. A lot of people move out of state and they're back to their old ways, man. They go out there to establish. They're on the run, so they're like, fuck it, Holmes. I'm going to start recruiting soldiers and making feria. This is the method and operation of the LA gang members from a particular gang or a coalition of LA-based sureño gangs. They will be well financed and seemingly have an endless supply of drugs, speed, or cocaine. And a group of them will approach the local drug dealers and make them an offer they can't refuse. Plata or plomo. You either sell the gang's fucking discounted dope or you get killed. It's up to you. Excuse me. Greed and fear sway most of the to the Sureño side. Most people just break bread, like Jesus said. They're like, fuck that, man. They don't want no problems. The few that resist are soon murdered. They also approach the local gangs and initiate them under the Sureño reglas or rules. In Oklahoma City, this was the Southside 13 gang. This was their territory. Southside is another way of saying Sur, and 13, of course, is another way of saying the number 13. The Tortilla Flats utilized local women on tattooing LA on them in this area, even though they're not from Los Angeles. You'll notice that a lot of women get utilized in that way, man. They get encumbered and enraptured with the gang members, man, especially those from out of state. So they start to get little monikers and their hoods tattooed on them, and it's just a trip, man. It's always been like that. Crook's job was to secure large quantities of drugs and drive them from California to Oklahoma City. The last shipment was 10 pounds of high-grade methamphetamine called glass or ice and 100 pounds of marijuana. Crook recruited more Tortilla Flats gang members and Compton Barrio 70 members as muscle. His adopted son, Chucky, arrived looking to put in work for the Sureños. So this is basically Chucky went out to Oklahoma to assist his homie, to put in that work. They approached the local gang members and had relatives and homeboys in the prison system and began recruiting for Little Boxer Gonzalez, who was out there also supplying the local Mongol and outlaw motorcycle gangs. Little Boxer Gonzalez provided the Tortilla Flats gang members with a hit list of local dealers and gang members that would not pay or resisted in some way his control. Some were Hispanic and one was an African American, but one was different. The target was an LAPD officer. LAPD officer, I guess, that had got a green light. He was on this list. Things were going great except for the few holdouts. The Sureños ruled Oklahoma City gang underworld, and Little Chucky volunteered to be part of the team to hit some of the homes of local gang members and drug dealers who owed Little Boxer drug money. Crook Gamboa claimed that he had tried to stop Chucky from being involved in the incident but failed. Crook did not trust Little Boxer, and he felt that something was wrong. So basically, it'd be like that sometimes. Sometimes you get a bad feeling, man. You feel like the homie is trying to play you or utilize you. You start to get that bad feeling. And I say to people, man, if you got that gut feeling, go with the gut, because more than likely, something bad's going to happen. So they weren't really feeling Little Boxer's intentions, man. But of course, Chucky was very one of those type of individuals, man. He was just trying to get money. He had a kid. He was young. He was still 19 years old. So he was just trying to put in some work, not only for his hood and represent, because now he was part of the mix. He had went from from juvenile hall to YA to, you get out, you get that YA mentality, and then you get out and your whole ways of thinking is putting in work. I remember when I got out of YA, my whole mentality was, man, to run wild for the Norte, man. And that's, what the work I put in. So at 19 years old, Chucky was killed in the house of a local drug dealer. So this is what happened to Chucky. The OKC drug dealer was dead also, but rumors began to circulate that Crook and Chucky's crime partner Clumsy had betrayed and killed their own homeboy. After Chucky's funeral in Palmdale, California, Gamboa was arrested for parole violation. He was very remorseful and under religious conviction. So he was sad, man. He felt he put Chucky, in danger, and, he probably thought back to that old, Fox Undercover documentary that they did, where he was also in it, and some of the things he was saying and how he showed Chucky, how to do crime, a life of crime. And instead of deterring him and telling him to go to school and be a better person, man, he took him down a whole different path and initiated him into the gang life, and ultimately Chucky passed, I believe he truly felt guilty for introducing the 9-year-old runaway to the Compton Tortilla Flat gangster life, and later to his homeboys Woody, Midget, and Little Boxer. Gamboa felt terrible that people were saying that he had something to do with killing Chucky, and yet he really felt that he had helped to kill him in another way. He basically killed, his life. He could have helped him to do better, man, but instead, he put Chucky in position to fail. As far as Midget, his life was over. He was condemned to security confinement in the security housing unit Shoe forever. Chucky's life was over as he lay in the unmarked grave forever, and Gamboa's life was also over, unable to return to his home and gang for fear they would murder him. People were really tripping on him because they felt that he took him out there and set him up. Rafael Crook Gamboa agreed to cooperate with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Oklahoma City and testify against the Mexican Mafia and the gang he loved so much. I traveled to Oklahoma City to assist in obtaining Gamboa's cooperation, said a police officer, and tried to explain the significance of the information and that it was a huge conspiracy case. He didn't think he really got it. So basically, what I'm reading from is an official documentation that was put out, by this police officer who actually dealt with the whole thing, man. And it's a cold game because, this guy Rafael Crook, I think the reason why he flipped and he turned was he felt that, if he went back to his Vato and tried to explain things, a lot of people had a lot of love for Chucky. You see that Chucky, if I do I did the video on Chucky and Midget the other day, and, people loved it. These guys get a lot of respect, man. They're basically like martyrs for the people of that area, youngsters, because everybody was going through some of the same shit. So a lot of people could identify, exactly how it was. Anyways, in August 28, 2006, a press release, the U.S. Attorney said, cooperating defendants, witnesses, and confidential informants all provided information that led to surveillance, arrests, search warrants, and the seizure of significant quantities of crystal methamphetamine and cocaine. Investigators were unable to document the importation of additional quantities of crystal methamphetamine and cocaine into Oklahoma. So they really turned this into a big case, man. This death, of Chucky and what happened at this drug dealer's house, man, put a lot of shit into motion. Rafael Gamboa, which was Chucky's homeboy, was a crook. He was promised consideration for his testimony and for his cooperation, but he was a stranger in a strange land, and he became distrustful of the federal and local officials after they mistakenly placed him with gang suspects that he testified against on more than one occasion. He was stabbed and beaten by the bad guys and given more than 20 years in prison by the good guys. So basically, they fucked him. They did him dirty. And that's what happens, man. When you decide to cooperate and, think that, I'm going to leave the past behind, and you turn on your camaradas, your homeboys, don't think that the authorities are going to be looking out for you. They still consider you a criminal. They still consider you a bad guy. And they're still going to stretch you out. Now, there are some cases where dudes do testify and flip. And, of course, they get great consideration. But still, you don't want to be labeled as that for the rest of your life and have to be looking over your shoulders. That's a hard life to live. As far as Chucky, Midget, and, of course, Woody, their life was on a path right from the beginning. You could see the looks in their eyes in that documentary, man. Woody looked committed, to a life of crime, whereas Midget was the old dog, of Mexicanos, basically, of Sureños. You've seen that movie, Menace to Society, and everybody likes old dog because old dog was the craziest motherfucker alive. Well, that was pretty much Midget. He was the craziest one alive. Now, I've talked to a couple people that actually knew Midget and said that, Midget did actually live that life. That wasn't fake. Everything that he portrayed in that documentary was exactly how he was. He was with the business and the program. But sometimes when you're going a little too hard in the paint, you're doing a little too much, man. Other people don't like that shit. It seems like the ones that prosper in the gang life are the ones that are low key, stick to themselves, just do their thing. They're loyal to their homeboys. But at the end of the day, they're not trying to do too much. Those that are flamboyant and are out there trying to do too much, and trying to make a name for themselves, ultimately, those are the ones that are going to end up, in a confinement by themselves, in a shoe by themselves forever, and discarded, thrown away because they're no longer useful or can be utilized by the body or the hood. Their name will always be remembered, but they'll be forgotten. And that's just what it is. As far as Chucky, man, Chucky has kind of become a martyr. He's kind of become a martyr because, he died tragically at such a young age. A lot of people, actually watched that documentary and felt for Chucky. A lot of people felt and could see that he actually wanted, the right things in life. He actually had a family that was trying to sway him away from the gang, trying to get him into a better position to succeed. But, ultimately, it's hard to get away from the Vadu. It's hard to get away from that lifestyle, especially when you're young and you see the older homeboys having women, money, drugs, this stuff to a kid that doesn't know no better, or to a kid that's, already went through some tragic, moments in his life, like Chucky did, the abuse, the molestation, the being disregarded, in the home. That's what you turn to. That's what was out there in the 90s. It wasn't like A lot of these kids, because they come from poverty, didn't have action at going to local sports or didn't have action at going to the Boys and Girls Club. Some did in some areas, but most, just turned to the streets. They turned to that life. And, a lot of these guys that did go to, did have a little bit of money and were able to go to these special programs, come to find out that a lot of these people and these adults that were at these special programs for the kids were actually violating them and doing bad shit. So ultimately, man, the streets are there. They're always going to be there. And that's where the kids turn. And that's how Chucky's life ended up. It's a tragic story because at the end of the day, you can't blame a barrio. You can't blame your homeboys. You can't blame anyone else for the decisions that you make. All you can do is take it in stride and understand that whatever you get, you got. All of us that have lived that life, especially in the 90s that were gangbanging and involved in a lot of shit, we sit back now, those of us that are able to, that didn't pass, because there's a lot of guys that passed. I remember doing time in the California Youth Authority, meeting several guys like Chucky, and it was crazy because Chucky ultimately did end up in the same CYA I was at, after me. He was actually in the system. I think I was a little bit older than him. Or about probably pretty much, I think I was 2 years older than him, 2 or 3 years older than him. When Chucky did hit the YA system. So I was already, we might have been there at the same time, but I was in Carl Holton while he was probably in Nellis or in SRCC, which is the reception. He ended up going to Monroe. One of my homies was there on Monroe with Chucky and said Chucky was about the business. He was putting in that work. So, does it mean anything to be putting in work? Does it mean anything to gain a name for yourself or a reputation on the streets? In the gang life, it does. Ultimately, that's what you live for. But in society, it doesn't. In society, man, you're just looked at as a person that's taking up space and someone that's breathing the same air that shouldn't be breathing it. And, as gang members, we were looked at bad. And when you grow up and you reflect back to the 90s and how crazy it was and all the shit that we were involved in, you can see, that we were being foolish with our activities in our life. So anyways, for those that asked how Chucky's life ended up, he did die in Oklahoma City. He's buried in Palmdale. Midget is in a wheelchair now, still locked up for life without the possibility. And his brother Woody is also incarcerated fighting his case. And that's pretty much the profile on Chucky. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you go out there, you move smooth with a purpose, you get everything that you want. Remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the struggle to strive, the strive to struggle. And again, man, you can't blame anyone else for your situation. When you're young and you expect your family to protect you, and they put you in a vulnerable position and people do bad things to you and you're victimized, man, yes, I understand, and then with the reasoning behind that, you could point the finger in the direction of people that should have looked out for you. But ultimately in this life, all you have is yourself. It's just an unfortunate situation, man, when, your family is not there for you and they leave you out there for the wolves, because there's plenty of wolves out there, man. It's up to us to identify that and to get away from that, man. So Chucky will be forever remembered. Rest in peace to Chucky. Condolences to his family. It's been a long time since he's been murdered. But that's what happens. That was the tragic short life of Chucky. He never had a chance, man. But it wasn't that he never had a chance. It was more so that he never put himself in a position to have a chance. There was plenty of people willing and able to help him. He just wasn't willing to accept it. He lived the life of a sureño, Holmes, and he'll forever be respected as one. And that's what it is, man. I've met so many people that went to YA, went through that, and, they got killed before the age of 18. So, this is just another story in the books. With that being said, man, go out there and get it for your familia and be happy that you do. Lead your kids in the right direction, because I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of Chuckies out there, man, needing help, but everybody's turning a blind eye to it. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I honestly and truly believe in. And that's the betterment of all people, man. Gracias. The gun. Bang, bang.